Prior to A Machine for Pigs, the Chinese Room had a few projects. Most important of those, in my opinion, was Dear Esther. Following A Machine for Pigs, not satisfied with releasing two bangers back to back, they decided they would once again give us another fantastic narrative horror experience. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Now, this was the first game from the Chinese Room that I played, and I absolutely loved it. This was actually my introduction into the walking simulator genre. Prior to this, I'd never played a game like it, and it completely blew me away. This was the beginning of my ceaseless dive into this fantastic genre. So a few years pass, and there I am some random day in July, just casually doom scrolling on TikTok, and I come across some footage for a game that was nearing the end of development. And I was completely enamored by this game that I just learned about it. A narrative horror game on an oil rig. Yeah, after some time, as it does, the TikTok algo stopped feeding me Still Wakes the Deep content. And like the bird brain that I am, I completely forgot about it. Then about a month before release, I see a friend tweet out that she was excited about the game, and I was like, hey, why does that sound familiar? And boom. Just like that, it's back. And I am on the hype train, full steam ahead. I was, however, adamant in trying to avoid learning anything more than I knew about the game. This was something that I really wanted to experience blind. And I did. And I am forever grateful that I managed to avoid all spoilers, because this game it's absolutely fantastic. Upon playing, the first thing I noticed was how much like The Thing, and in many ways like Dead Space it was. And with that, I'm so excited to talk to you about this game. Now, before we fully begin, would you kindly leave a comment? Tell me about a game that you're excited about for this year. My big releases for this year are Frostpunk 2 and Silent Hill 2. Anyway, I pushed many games aside to skip ahead to this game, and for a very good reason. Welcome to my review of Still Wakes the Deep. So as goes with walking simulators, this shit is next level immersion. I mean, the Chinese Room's whole pedigree is highly immersive games. It's just what they are good at, and in my opinion, they have perfected it with this game. Let's start with the sound design, because god damn, dude. So the game starts on some beautiful voice acting, and it opens on the main character's wife speaking from a letter that she wrote to him. And right from the jump, you can tell that every word that comes out of every mouth is going to be so beautifully recorded and emoted.
I still can't believe you went. What are you thinking? Going to that place? Wish you hadn't got yourself into this mess, but you did. You can't run forever. I know you were just trying to do right by me, so I need you to do what's right by us. Now, please, Cass. I am so tired of fighting. I just want it to be over. I want you home. The girls want you home, but if you don't deal with this, then we are done for good. I love you. But I won't wait forever. Suze.
Jesus, Suze.
Girls made you a Christmas card.
Fuck. Merry fucking Christmas.
Kaz, Roy's finishing up breakfast if you want something.
I'll be there in a minute, Trots.
Aye, well, dinna wait too long or someone will be off with it.
Aye. All right.
And it really is. Even the protag Kaz it's just done so well. There's a lot of dialogue in this game, whether it's just Kaz talking to himself or just one conversation between two other crewmates. Everything just feels so full, beautiful, and also they're like fucking Irish, so they're talking all like, "Oi, can it crack?" You know, Irish or Scottish. You know, why don't you tell me below in the comments whether they're Scottish or Irish? The background audio, as well as the just general Foley work, it was stupendous. The waves crashing beneath the deck sound massive. The sound of Kaz's heavy boots pressing heavily against the deck of the oil rig. The sounds of chains swinging in the winds. Hell, the wind's blowing through open walls and windows. It's all incredible. And the guys who worked on the sound, they deserve a goddamn raise. I don't care what they're getting paid. Pay them more. Now, the writing of the characters is just as beautiful as the rest. Something in media that I deeply enjoy is when characters are just having conversations regarding things that the player will never witness or be a part of. It just shows us that we might be playing the main character, but they're not the only person living within this world, living life. And it's something that I've always enjoyed.
Look, there's no escaping. There's going to be a dozen more rigs up here by the end of next year because they pricks in Westminster want their grubby wee hands on Scotland's oil.
Christ, not this again.
The bear is already down to the bare bones, and Cadal are just going to make more cuts to get other rigs on the go. If we don't take industrial action soon, this place...
Come on!
If we don't take industrial action soon, this place will be even more of a death trap than it already is.
He's got a point though, Gibbo. We're down to a skeleton crew in the pontoons and it's ropey as fuck down there.
Workers of the world unite! What do you think, Kaz?
I don't know. Just here to fix the lecky.
What do you think will be keeping the lights on if this place falls apart?
That's coal, you numpty.
Now, I'm not going to get into the details, but I think the story is beautiful just as well. It's a real step up and be a man type shit. And so much of the story is really left to interpretation, which it's beautiful. Show don't tell, you know? Letting the player make up their mind about what's going on, guiding us to one conclusion or another is just, I love that shit. On top of that, it's monsters. And this is where Still Wakes the Deep really resembles The Thing. The story writing is just, it's good. And it feels good not knowing every little minute detail about the antagonist or the monster. You know, knowing the origins of something in every moment of their or its life is just, it doesn't make a better story. And leaving so much out improved that experience. It really did. It really improved the experience. So, next up, we're going to talk about the visuals. Fidelity-wise, it's fine. It's not something that bothers me generally. The actual visual design of the world, however, its inhabitants and its creatures, my god, dude, everything is beautiful. The oil rig working on looks like a well-used oil rig, and as a child of a rig worker, I can say everything looked exactly as I had envisioned as a child. Everything felt precarious and teetering on a dangerous precipice. Oil rigs are not safe places, and even before the incident, it felt as if something awful could just happen at any minute. The hallways were long and cramped, littered with junk, whether it be papers or overflow from some storage closet, spare machine parts or trash. The rig, the halls, it all felt lived in. We even get a beautiful look at the actual decks on the rig, and we can see just the regular hustle and bustle of all the rig workers just getting by. And everything about the design of the rig is just so goddamn good. I was pretty stoked to see how well everything was put together in the early moments of the game. Okay, so the monsters in the life form. I do not know what the creatures or the life form are, but dear God, are the designs of these things just horrifying and beautiful. When the life form isn't an amalgamation of flesh and bone, it reminds me of the 2019 film The Color Out of Space, and even the 2008 film Annihilation. The life form is beautiful. Its flesh, if it can even be called or considered, is comprised of glowing pinks and purples and deep reds. And it is a sight to behold. And at a glance, the flesh seems dense, and when we see it, it looks more like it could be a very hard rubber or even a flexible kind of steel. Sometimes it can even be seen pumping stuff through its tendrils, though I am not clear on what or why. I don't think any of us are. And then there are the creatures and the biomass it collects from the crew. I'm not going to assume for a second to know how this thing works. But after you see the life form's main body, with the pink and purple glowing tendrils, you begin to start seeing human flesh, blood, and bones melted together in gruesome and horrifying fashion. But it seems off. We can see it's human, but it's wrong. The first flesh mount I encountered, I immediately noticed the proportions were way off. And this had me confused. What exactly does the life form want? What is it doing to the crew? And why is it doing these things? Not on a moral level, mind you, but a biological level. These odd characteristics can be seen time and time again in the mounds. The proportions are just, they're all off. Everything is just bigger, as if after consuming the flesh, it's trying to recreate the flesh, but it just wants to make it bigger and bigger. And bigger it does get. So the monsters are just, jeez, dude. They are fantastic. I cannot stop gushing over this game. I'm sorry. This is going to be just ranting and raving over this game almost the entire time. I'm not sorry. So the monsters, they're fleshy sacks of human remains that either still contain the consciousness of the human they were, or my guess, when the life form recreates them, it tries to create the person but can only create a facsimile. However, the physical person appears more parody than facsimile, with oversized appendages and fleshy sack for a body, often employing the use of tentacles, which also seem to come off the life form itself at times. Much like the flesh mounds, the creatures, which are all crewmates, seem to retain much of their physical self, but all of their features are just way off. And this is seen most prominent in the case of the Rennick creature. His head and face have been greatly enlarged and exaggerated more of the creatures. And this is most prominent in the case of the Rennick creature. His head and face have been greatly enlarged and exaggerated, where more of the creature is just his head. And the design of each and every other creature is just as grotesque and horrifying. This game is simply and purely unadulterated art in the form of violence, and it is beautiful. So we're gonna do something a little bit different here because, I guess you're about to find out where we're gonna do something a little different here. This section was obviously titled Gameplay and Story as opposed to just gameplay, which normally is what it would be, or just story. But as far as gameplay goes, this is a walking simulator, pure and simple. Now, if you aren't familiar with such a thing, it's basically a game with no combat mechanics, generally set in the first person with some puzzles with a narrative focus. That is exactly what this is. So then, the story. You play as Cameron Kaz McCleary, an electrician who is just finishing his stint on oil rig Beira D. Kaz fled to work on the oil rig in an attempt to avoid police persecution back in his hometown for the vicious beating of someone who insulted his wife, which I totally get. I would do the same thing. So despite having no experience on an oil rig, Kaz's best friend Roy helps him get the job so Kaz can avoid prison time. Despite his wife's repeated protests, Kaz leaves. And despite how far he fled, the police managed to follow him back to the rig. So on his last day, his boss Rennick fires him for bringing the police around. So as Kaz is leaving to board the helicopter, the oil rig hits something, and Kaz falls off trying to save a friend. He's rescued by some of the crew, but immediately notices the rig is just falling apart. And something weird is coming off of the derrick itself, and it is not helping the situation at all. It is not long after this that Kaz and the remaining crew realize that not only is the rig falling apart, but it is doomed. They spend their last moments trying to keep the rig from imploding on itself before they get off. During this, many of the crew have been consumed by the life form that came from the derrick. And many of them have been transformed into whatever the hell they're transformed into. This adds to the desperation and the futility of the crew situation. Eventually, Rennick is like, "Hey, everybody, we're actually gonna finally evacuate." You know, he stalls the evacuation for a while because he's all like, "We're just gonna get back to work. It's not that big a deal." But eventually, he's like, "Okay, we're totally gonna do it." And as Kaz is coming up on the helipad where they are evacuating from, Rennick decides, "Fuck this shit." Hops in a helicopter with the other manager on site, and they attempt to bail. So eventually, the helicopter flies off, and they leave. And heroically, the helicopter crashes. So at some point, Kaz has to go rescue Roy. And it turns out Roy's diabetic and you gotta bring him his insulin. But by the time we get to Roy, he's tragically passed, dead due to diabetic ketoacidosis. After this, the remaining crew realize they need to stop this life form by any and all means. It cannot find its way to civilization. After getting pinned, one of the crewmates, Finley, managed to convince Kaz to do the right thing and blow the whole rig, killing them and the life form. And in a show of growth and heroism, Kaz destroys the rig, killing himself and anyone or anything left to hell. Now, while the story isn't much more than a cowardly man learns to put others first and sacrifices himself for the greater good, it is displayed in a very emotional way. Kaz didn't just, he didn't want to go to prison. And so he fled. He was scared. He was a coward. And by the end of his stint at on the oil rig, he was begging to be with his family. And in the end, he had to sacrifice himself to make sure his family could live on. Though it is not explicitly stated if what they did even worked. And I personally doubt it did. And when a cleanup crew comes around to, clean up, they will inevitably run into the life form, and it will find its way to shore. So much like the Thing, humanity is doomed no matter what. So I never did cover why this is exactly like, not exactly like, but like Dead Space. Kaz, much like Isaac, has to step up and face creatures beyond comprehension. And he also uses his skill set to help him navigate through his environment. It's like that. It's like that in that way. It's not like, over-the-shoulder combat, but it's similar to Isaac's progression. The sheer horror of Still Wakes the Deep is palpable. The game covers several themes, all of which are beat over the player's head like a horror cudgel. Let's start with the more obvious. Cosmic horror. The crew stumble upon what can only be assumed was an ancient life form. Whether it is native to Earth or a long dormant alien is never explained. All we know, it is awake and seemingly wants to spread. The life form begins transforming both the rig and its crew. However, the purpose of this transformation is completely unknown. That is something that I really appreciated about this. The writers just left this blank. What does it want? What is it doing? Any question that you could possibly ask about this life form is not answered. All the while, the life form is making everyone around it go insane. Proximity to it seems to work similarly to the marker in regards to the mind. The crew who transform are just simply angry, violent, and often confused and scared as well. And most of the humans' negative emotions are greatly amplified to the great dismay those who have not transformed. You never find out what this thing wants, what it's doing, where it's going, anything. Its motives are beyond comprehension. The body horror was what really had me going in this game. The team at the Chinese room, they knocked the designs of the transform crew they knocked it out so beautifully. That shit is art, dude. Straight up, this game, its creatures are art. It's like a cross between Rob Bottin and David Cronenberg. I don't even know what to call some of this stuff, but seeing what the life form does to the human body is just horrifying. One of my personal favorite little horror themes was the horror of losing a loved one. This one is not as explicit as the others, but is a constant theme throughout the game. Kaz left his home to work on the oil rig to escape the police who were after him for beating his shit out of the dude who assaulted his wife, which again is very based. Wife good. You know, we opened the game on his last day on the rig where he's relishing the idea of returning home to his wife and kids. Like, damn the consequences, he's ready to be with his family. But all hell breaks loose. And through the entire game, Kaz laments not being with his family. And the further along the night gets, the more emotional he becomes in regards to it. Especially when he realizes he's never going back home. And as a family man myself, this hit me. It hit me hard. I don't like stuff like that no more. And then there's a bunch of, you know, more minor horrors, which we're gonna name some of the things that the game will help you in being scared of. You know, there's some light thalassophobia, you know, fear of the ocean. There's some claustrophobia, acrophobia, which I believe is fear of heights, agoraphobia, which is fear of wide open spaces, aquaphobia, fear of water, nyctophobia, fear of night and darkness. Sprinkle a little typophobia, hemophobia, and agoraphobia in, and bada bing, bada boom. The game offers a lot for everyone. If you are afraid of something, this game will probably try to touch on it. And I truly appreciate how scary and horrifying the game was. And this gives me great hope for the future of the Chinese Room and the games that they might make in the future. I like horror games. I mean, yeah. So I do not say this lightly, but this is going to be the best original horror game of 2024 for me. There's going to be no better horror game, no original IP horror game that is going to be releasing this year that is going to top this game. Silent Hill 2 is going to be incredible, and we are all going to love it, but we've already played it. This game is new, it's incredible, and it deserves to be played. Now, I played Still Wakes the Deep via Game Pass, which I will be buying and have bought this at filming. And I will be buying it wherever possible. It is a phenomenal walking simulator. I think they really tried to do something new with the genre. And in my opinion, this feels fresh. It's not just another PT clone. It is the true evolution of what they had done with Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, Dear Esther, and A Machine for Pigs. It was really nice to play a narrative horror game and not immediately be reminded that PT exists. Like, I mean, obviously its influence is there. It's impossible to avoid its influence at this point. But the Chinese Room, they did something different with it. And I thought they knocked it out of the park. And I don't want you to get me wrong. I love PT. I do. It is the progenitor of some of the best walking simulator horror games that come out in the past 10 years. but it is not the only good walking simulator horror game. And I'm glad something's finally come along to say, hey, PT isn't the only good one. So, should you buy this? Yeah. If you love horror games and movies, this is a must play. It is the best walking sim horror game to come out in a long time, and it is a much needed breath of fresh air into the genre. A breath of fresh air that I didn't know that it needed. I'd been enjoying so many narrative walking simulators just this year alone, doing these reviews, that I hadn't considered that there needed to be a change. I was along for the ride, and I was enjoying the ride, having a good time. And then this game came along and showed me what these games could be. And I am very grateful for that. Still Wakes the Deep. Best horror game of 2024. Period. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you haven't already and you enjoyed this, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It helps you find my videos way easier. And it also helps viewers just like you find these videos. A win-win for everybody. That's how the algorithm works, actually. It's not just trying to show stuff to anybody. I learned this. This is like completely irrelevant to the entire point of this entire video. The way the YouTube algorithm works is that it's not that it's showing it to random people. It needs a collection of people to show it to, which is previous audience, and it'll take that data and be like, okay, well here's an audience just like them that has similar viewing habits. We're gonna send it to those people, and those people watch, and it'll do the same thing with them, and it'll just keep doing that, and it'll repeat until things in many cases go viral. Not in my case. I don't expect that to happen for quite some time, but that's how the algorithm works. It's pretty neat, and it is confirmed by I think a YouTube executive. If you're curious about it and you really want to see the guy say it, leave a comment, tell me to find the video, and I'll post a link to it down in the comments, and I'll pin it. I'll pin the video if you want to see that. Also, very sorry for the slow upload schedule since the end of May. I needed a little break, but we should be getting back to 2 videos a month soon again. Next video is Bloodborne, where I will be analyzing the story in my own perspective. I'm very excited to talk about that. I already have a lot to say. I love Bloodborne, one of my favorite games. So I'm very excited to be able to just talk to someone other than my wife about it. Very cool. Anyway, that's it. That's the video. Slosh out.
Hey, Cass. I'm sorry it's been so hard. I just wanted to send you this. To say we'll get through it. I know we will. Just take care out there and bring my beautiful big gallus man back home in one piece, okay? I miss you and I love you. And the girls miss and love you. I'm still raging at Roy, but he's a good man and I know he'll look after you. Whatever happens, we will be alright. We can weather this. Just wanted to say that to you, Cass. To keep you safe and close and make sure you know to come home to us. I love you, Cameron McCleary. Be safe out there on those waters. My man. My love.